Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. Before we get into our second segment of today's show, I want to remind you, as always, to consider availing yourselves to the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube. That's always the best way to contribute and interact with our shows a little bit more directly. You can also do it through our website, gsmcpodcast.net. You don't also have to leave your opinions, feedback, input as well. Tips and donations are also genuinely appreciated for all those concerned around the network, and it just makes our shows that much better when you, our faithful audience, are interacting with them. So without further ado, let's jump right into our second segment, continuing with this football narrative. Where could Cooper Kupp end up? Obviously, recently just informed that he was on the trade market by the Los Angeles Rams, and I know that a lot of teams, even though Cooper Kupp is one of those guys who's more of a possession-based receiver, getting up there in age, and that might have been the reason why the Los Angeles Rams were looking to ship him off, that could be desperate enough to want his services, and also consider themselves more of a contender should they acquire him. But I do think that when you think about a guy like Cooper Kupp, you have to think about a team that really buys into the philosophies that Cooper Kupp exudes. He's going to be a guy who's not going to be the flashiest superstar wide receiver you could get out on the market. He's going to be a guy that just moves the chain steadily. And if you're an offense that likes that and preaches that, then maybe he's the guy for you. But if you are an ambitious offense and you want to be a little bit more pass heavy, then maybe you don't necessarily think about Cooper Kupp. And these four teams fall all along that kind of median here. They're either on one side or the other side, or they kind of are in the middle, or on the fence about potentially going out and picking him up. But I do think that any of these four teams will be positively impacted by the addition of a receiver like Kupp. So without further ado, let's jump right into them. Starting off with one of the more intriguing options for Cooper Kupp, and a team that I do think could see themselves, if they acquire him, as a more pass-happy offense. How about the Dallas Cowboys? Brandon Cooks is a free agent, and CeeDee Lamb is someone who can't necessarily continuously carry this team on his own, and I know that there was an opportunity for the Dallas Cowboys to see more receivers after both him and Prescott went down, and guys like Jalen Tolbert looked exciting, but I do think that this would be an interesting piece to acquire, because while CeeDee Lamb is the flashier option, Cooper Kupp balances him out perfectly and gives Dak Prescott a more layered approach in the pocket, where one target is right at the sticks, exploiting the softness and say more zone looks, whereas CeeDee Lamb is more willing to take on someone in man-to-man coverage and beat them with his speed. And it will be allowed to as a result should they acquire a guy like Cooper Kupp. So the Cowboys are one of those teams where I find myself in the middle, on the fence with them, because they don't necessarily completely need Cooper Kupp, and I think with Brian Schottenheimer he can go either way. Very volatile at the OC spot over the years, and now he's the head coach. I really don't know how the tenor of this offense is going to look, but I do think that he will be, at the end of the day, an intriguing enough signing to add some diversity to this team if they choose to acquire his services. So I can't necessarily say that the Cowboys will be a terrible place for Cooper Kupp to end up, but I don't necessarily think it will be the best place considering this transition in offensive philosophies from, say, McCarthy to Schottenheimer, if you know what I'm saying. So while the Cowboys are definitely a team that could be in the sweepstakes, I just think that the way they're moving right now, we could see them come a little bit more run heavy, or they could decide to rely on the pass game a little more, and they might be a little bit more aggressive than others in trying to get Kupp for that very reason. So, who knows? But coming next is a team that clearly doesn't necessarily have to have Cooper Kupp, but will be even more deadly if they add him. And they might just be the best team in football, at least on the offensive side of things, if they acquire Cooper Kupp services, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. I think that the Baltimore Ravens might just be one of the best teams in on Cooper Kupp, one of the best teams that people heard rumors about, because of the fact that if you add a guy like Cooper Kupp, it allows Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman to continue to grow. It opens up things even for guys like Andrews and Likely in the middle of the field. And Cooper Kupp, at his age, doesn't necessarily have to be the number one option. Because that was the thing with the Rams. It was always a challenge between him and Nakua to see who would emerge as the number one receiver. And now that it's clear that Sean McVay and this organization see Nakua as the number one option, chances are teams won't necessarily view him that way either. So the Ravens could be a team that are really intriguing because they don't need Cooper Kupp to be that guy for them all the time. And he can slot in next to Flowers and Bateman, who can exploit man-to-man coverage downfield, and he can be more of a possession-based receiver that could alleviate pressure on not just Lamar, but this offensive line that has a lot of questions about it heading into the offseason. So I do think that while the Ravens would, in many people's minds, become unfair if this happened, I really like the fit here. Because if this is not just the Ram decision and it's Cooper Kupp's, then I feel like this would be where he ends his career too, right? Because he's at the twilight of it and he really might not get top of the market money from a lot of these teams. So he has to take what he gets, and the Ravens could offer him a nice enough deal to where he's not necessarily paid like a wide receiver one anymore, but he can be ingrained into this team from the get-go as someone who could still contribute in the passing game. And the Ravens will love it because not only does this really make their passing game deadly, but also make this running game deadly as well. Because Kupp opens up a lot of things in the run game, especially in second and third and short situations, to where you can call a lot more diverse plays than you would without a guy like Kupp. So that's why I really think the Ravens situation will become even better with Kupp in it. But let's talk about a team that certainly is a little bit more of a long shot, but I still think that if Cooper Kupp is added to its ranks, could really make this one of the more creative offenses in the NFL. The Denver Broncos. And we know that Sean Payton would rather a joker type of player where he has a running back or tight end who is a little bit more versatile in both the run game and the receiving game respectively than, say, your typical possession-based receiver. But I do think that we saw out of the Denver's Broncos offense as Bo Nix improved throughout the season, as he started to trust Sean Payton a little bit more, was a lot of plays in the short to intermediate areas of the field that were on timing-based routes. I feel like if they want to continue that narrative, at least in the quote-unquote downfield passing game, then Cooper Kupp is the best security blanket for a guy like Bo Nix. And I really feel that if Denver continues to be aggressive in building up their homegrown talent and relying on talent through the draft, then this pick might not make any sense. But ultimately, I do think that if you want to continuously attack the middle of the field with Bo Nix, you're going to want a couple more receivers who fit that mold, and Kupp is the perfect one. He's not going to be the youngest player in this offense by any long shot, but it certainly opens up a lot of avenues as to what Sean Payton can call for Bo Nix in his second year of his career. And you want to see improvement from a guy like Bo Nix, right? If you're Sean Payton and company, because if he stagnates, that shows that maybe investment in him proves unwise down the stretch for you. So you want to make sure that he has players who are not just youthful and are buying into the Sean Payton narrative, but players who have the experience and can help him out and help him grow and mature continuously in the league. And Cooper Kupp could be that for him. So while I do think that there's something to the Broncos building through their homegrown talent and relying on their depth in terms of their youth, I do think the addition of Kupp would really help this team experience-wise, especially a guy like Cooper Kupp, who's still growing into the league. And the fact that they made the playoffs a little bit ahead of schedule makes this a lot more of an appealing destination to Cooper Kupp. And here, he would not necessarily be the number one receiver, but he certainly could bring out the best in a lot more guys, like, say, Mims and Vele, who will then be allowed to have more freedom in the passing game themselves. So this could be an interesting situation here for Denver. And last but not least, I think this is the simplest answer to the potential landing spots for Cooper Kupp. It's the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are a team that over the years have been very aggressive in the wide receiver market, picking up Diggs, picking up Cooper mid-season this year. But I do feel like because of this shift in offensive philosophy, because of how Joe Brady has utilized Josh Allen, how he's utilized the run game, how he's limited Josh Allen's turnovers, this makes a lot of sense because Cooper Kupp is not going to be the number one receiver who goes down the field on every single route, runs the go route, the post routes for you. No, he moves the chains consistently like Josh Allen would want him to, and most importantly, defines a little bit more of the other receivers in this receiving room. Khalil Shakir becomes more of a definitive yak kind of guy, whereas Keon Coleman could be seen as more of a downfield threat himself. And Dalton Kincaid and Cooper Kupp could be the exploiters of the soft coverages they face. So ultimately, if I'm Joe Brady, if I'm Sean McDermott, I'm chomping at the bit to get a guy like Cooper Kupp in the squad as they continue to shift the mindset of this team offensively. Because I feel like that if they continue on this route, their Super Bowl window will remain open, and most importantly, Josh Allen will continue to play at an MVP caliber level. But it all depends on how Cooper Kupp feels, how the Rams feel, and the offers they get for him. But let me know what you think about this situation in the comments below. Because coming next week, we switch over to the world of basketball for a little bit. Talking Knicks Pacers. Interesting game tonight with a completely different tenor from their playoff series just a couple of months ago. We'll be right back after this short break to talk about it.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSM